HighBridge, a division of Recorded Books, presents Data for the People: How to Make Our Post-Privacy Economy Work for You, by Andreas Weigend, read by Barry Abrams. Prologue: When Everything is Recorded. As information itself becomes the largest business in the world, data banks know more about individual people than the people do themselves. The more the data banks record about each one of us, the less we exist. Marshall McLuhan. In 1949, my father, then a young man of 23, took a job as a teacher in East Germany. When he arrived in his new town, he needed to find someone to share a room with. At the train station, he met a man who was also looking for a place to live. My dad thought it was his lucky day. But a few days after they moved into their home, his roommate went missing. My dad was baffled. As the day stretched on, he grew worried. Not long afterward, as my dad was making breakfast one morning, there came a knock at the door. Perhaps his roommate had returned. However, when he answered, he was greeted by several unfamiliar men, who informed him that he had won an award for teaching. It was quite a special award, and had to be presented to him in person, and they were there to escort him to the hall where he would be honored. He met this invitation with skepticism. In the circumstances, it seemed odd that the men were so dour, and that they were all wearing identical trench coats. But he had no choice. He was immediately ushered into a waiting car. To his utter alarm, he discovered that the car doors could not be opened from the inside. He had been arrested by the Soviet occupying forces. Based on the evidence that he spoke English, my father was charged with being an American spy. None of his family or friends knew where he was. He had disappeared from the face of the earth. He was thrown into solitary confinement in a prison run by the Soviet authorities, where he languished for 6 years. He never learned what got him arrested, nor what got him released. There are real life-threatening risks to sharing personal information, because data can be used against us. Indeed, contemplating that risk is quite sobering and scary to me, specifically because I have seen how data were collected and used against my father. A decade after the collapse of East Germany, I requested to see what information the Ministry for State Security, also known as the Stasi, had collected about my father during and after his imprisonment. I wasn't the only one curious to know what the Stasi had on my family. Nearly 3 million people have asked to see their own files, or those of relatives, since the fall of the Berlin Wall. Unfortunately, when the letter came from the commission in charge of sharing the Stasi's files, it seemed that everything about my dad had been destroyed. However, tucked into the envelope with the letter, I discovered a photocopy of another Stasi file, my own. I was amazed. There was a Stasi file on me? I was just a kid studying physics. Still, the security agents had started gathering information about me as early as 1979, when I was a teenager, and had last updated the file in 1987, the year after I had moved to the United States. All that was left of my record was the cover sheet. I'd never known what information the Stasi had collected, why they had collected it, or what, if anything, it had been used for. Back in the days of the Stasi, it was tough to get information about citizens of interest. First, the data had to be gathered by following people, taking photographs of them, intercepting their mail, interviewing their friends, installing microphones in their homes. Then, the information had to be analyzed, all by hand. There was so much to scrutinize that, at the time of the collapse of East Germany, 1% of the nation's working population worked full-time for the secret police. But the Stasi needed even more resources than that to collect information. According to the Bundesregierung, East Germany eventually had about 200,000 citizens gathering information for it. Data collectors today have it easy in comparison. Think about a few high-profile cases. Following many months of protest and court battles, privacy activists won a small but limited victory against the NSA's drag.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?